I'm pleased to welcome to the stage Jonathan Daniel, Managing Director of Fitback Physiotherapy. He is a chartered physio with years of experience in the NHS, the private sector, and perhaps most interestingly, professional rugby. He's here to tell us how targeted physio in the workplace can help businesses improve their profits. Jonathan, we're all ears. Thank you.
Oh, hello. Can you hear me okay? Yes? Thank you. Thank you very much for the introduction. Apologies if I appear a little bit nervous at the start. I'm used to playing to sell-out stadiums, so the smaller, more intimate venues tend to make me a little bit nervous. So bear with me. Yes, my name is Jonathan Daniel. I'm Director of Fitback Physiotherapy, and we provide, my company provides specialist occupational health physiotherapy services to businesses across the UK, working with a whole range of different industries. Thank you for inviting me along today, Tom, to come and speak. Although I must admit, initially I thought I'd been invited to speak at the BBC conference and not the BCC conference. So initially, I got very excited. The BBC, I had a message, please call Tom Reynolds at the BBC. They'd like you to come down and speak at a conference. So extremely excited. Now you can imagine when I phoned up and asked to speak to Tom and they said, hello, the British Ceramics Confederation, I thought, oh gosh, sorry, I seem to have the wrong number. And he said, you know, who's on the phone? I said, it's Jonathan Daniel calling from Fitback. Yes, we'd like you to come and speak at our conference, please. So I got even more excited, finding out that I'd been invited to the British Ceramics Confederation. So, the next 60 minutes of your life, you're stuck with me, I'm afraid. Please give me a shout if I do run over. Tom, I'm sure you'll put your hand up and let me know. But today we're going to talk about musculoskeletal disorders. And just before I start, actually, what I'd like to do, if you could please put your hand up if you are currently or in the past have suffered with neck or back pain. So just a show of hands. Okay, this is where I need about 80% of you to put your hands up, or I may as well just get up and leave the room, okay? So 80% of the population will experience some form of neck or back pain at some point of their adult life. So we're going to look at musculoskeletal disorders. You know, what are the symptoms of musculoskeletal disorders? Because they do present in a whole different way. The most common types of musculoskeletal or MSDs in the workplace, the risk factors, because everyone will be holding different risks with the different environments. Early management, which is actually crucial. So having early advice and self-managing can make the difference between a short-term MSD or a more chronic one. How to help yourself, because self-management is a real key as well. So if we can empower you to look after yourself and your employees, then you're going to be off to a good start. MSD prevention, what we can do to prevent these problems from occurring, and also look at some exercises. Now, with your help, we're going to try to break a new world record today later on. Okay, this is going to be potentially 200 ceramic professionals or ceramic employees all doing a squat thrust at the same time. So bear with me, we're going to see how we go with that, but we could break a new world record, okay? And also when you might need help. So if you are suffering with a problem, you know, when should you actually reach out and actually get some help? So after speaking with Tom and obviously feeling a little bit under pressure to speak at today's conference, I'll be completely honest with you, I hadn't heard about the BCC until the phone call from Tom, so it's really enlightened me into all the different industries. I used to go to school in Bedfordshire, and I grew up in Bedford. I understand that's where quite a lot of the brick manufacturing sites are. So Tom taught me through all the different elements and different areas within ceramics, and it was a real eye-opener. So I thought, okay, I better do a little bit of research. And I came up with this. So I just Googled different types of ceramics. So I heard that there was, you know, brick manufacturing, there was homeware, toiletware. Hopefully I haven't left any group out of here. So hopefully we've kind of covered every one of these. And each one of these will bring their different challenges as well. So I always like to bring a bit of humor and a bit of case studies into my talks and presentations. So I started Googling on YouTube just to see if I could find any videos that would bring a smile to our faces. And I did find this one, which is quite good. When's he going to stop? Now, I thought one layer was enough, and then he started another layer. And there's a guy to his left-hand side as well who's also doing it, so I was pretty impressed. Now, I'm hoping, because there's a representative from the HSE here, that no one actually carries bricks like this. Although I do understand that there's still quite a bit of manual packing of bricks that go on. So I've got a feeling this guy started off this job and he was 6'5", and he's now about 5'2". He's actually starting to drill oil with his feet. So this is one of the videos. And there was another one which I saw, which I was going to put in, but I took out just in case there are any donkey lovers out there. There was an old-fashioned horse and cart, well, a donkey and cart, basically, with a whole load of bricks on the end. And instead of manually taking off these one brick at a time, they lifted the donkey up and he took off the ground and they all slipped off the back. Now, I didn't want to upset anyone, so I did take that one on, but it is quite interesting if you want to Google that one yourself. So you'll see that with this guy carrying the bricks, okay, he's putting his body through a whole load of stresses, which he would have come conditioned to, because I'm sure he didn't start off carrying 30, 40 bricks. He probably started off with 10 or 11 and basically built his way up through that. But different working environments bring their different challenges to individuals and also their musculoskeletal systems. So people working in confined spaces, working in static postures, people working in lots of different environments, their bodies will be challenged in different ways. And I'm sure there are some of you here who, some of you may be quite manual workers, but some of you may be sat on your bums for 8 hours a day or longer, and then get up and then drive home a couple of hours. And even people who have static postures for a long time can develop lots of musculoskeletal problems as well. But these tend to be more kind of posture-related rather than things like slipped discs and stuff. So we will be talking a little bit about that. So firstly, what is a musculoskeletal disorder? So it's injury, damage, or any kind of disorder to the joints and or soft tissues of the body, including muscles, bones, tendons, ligaments, and nerves. So it's everything from a bicep muscle to a glutes muscle to kind of nerve kind of problems as well, and also the joints. So things like arthritis, or what I like to call it wear and tear rather than arthritis, these are all things that can bring about musculoskeletal disorders. Please feel free to shout out most common kinds of MSDs in your industry. So just throw them at me. So if you're a manager or maybe on the shop floor potentially working, what kind of things do people tend to suffer from most? Wrist? Okay. Shoulders? Head, shoulders, knees and toes. Back? Okay. The person who mentioned the wrist, sorry, can I just have a show? Is that what kind of industry, what kind of area do you work in?
Well, we do everything by hand.
Okay.
So we set bricks by hand.
So lots of...
Twisting.
Yeah, constant twisting. So this gentleman here, lots of twisting and moving, so that's potentially going to expose problems there. The backs tend to come from repeated bending, twisting and turning and things. So depending on specifically which type of area you work in will predispose you to certain kind of conditions, which is why it's really important to do things to kind of help with that. So can anyone tell me some of the symptoms that you get? So if anyone's experienced kind of problems, what kind of symptoms do people get when they're suffering with an MSD? Pain? Swelling?
Reduced movement.
Yep, stiffness, reduced movement.
Stress.
Stress, yep. Sorry? Lack of sleep, that's a big one. Any others? So here we are, some of them. So pain is one of the major ones. So I would say that most people at some point will suffer some kind of musculoskeletal pain. I certainly do. I've got a bad shoulder and a bad back. I've got lots of bad things. I think as physios, we tend to suffer with these things so we can impart our empathy on other people. Anyone suffer with pins and needles, tingling in the hands? Yeah, a couple of shows of hands, maybe tingling pins and needles in your toes, feet occasionally. Tingling and pins and needles, things like that are a sign that the nerves are affected. So there can be tightness in your nerves. So nerves, just like muscles, need to be able to move, and they can become quite stiff as well. So it's still relatively early in the day for me. If I get up and now if I bend and stretch like this, I'm stretching my nerve, which runs right down to my arms, and that feels really tight. Now, a nerve pain is very different from a muscular pain. It's a real kind of burning pain, gnawing pain. It's just horrible. And I've had a slip disc, and still do have a slip disc in the base of my neck. I played semi-professional rugby for a long time, never had any neck injuries. One day, when I was just graduated as a physio, I bent down to put my socks on, bang, my neck went, and I prolapsed a disc in my neck. So I had a floppy arm for about 2 months with pain right off the scale, absolute agony. So even these finer movements can cause injuries. Even bending down to pick a feather up, you're potentially more likely to injure yourself doing that than you are when you go and lift something heavy. If you go and lift something heavy, your body is prepared for it. So you know that that's heavy, so you activate all the big muscles in your back and you bend properly, so you're more likely to bend down and use your knees rather than just bend down like that. So if you bend down like that, you're not prepared to do it, and that's when your injuries can happen. We'll talk a little bit more about manual handling later on. I think someone mentioned numbness. Again, tingling numbness in your fingers, reduced range of movement, stiffness, burning sensation. It's horrible where the kind of the nerve pain burning, swelling and reduced strength, so weakness. If you have a damaged muscle, that muscle is less likely to be able to generate power to be able to lift. So there may be lots of people working in your areas, in your factories, that may be suffering with problems, and actually presenteeism now is becoming a really big term. And presenteeism is costing businesses more than absenteeism, because presenteeism is very difficult to measure. So how many people in your environments are turning up to work with bad backs or a bad shoulder and they're not being as productive? Their pick rate or however many bricks they may be moving or moving may be less. And it's a really, really difficult thing to quantify and to measure. But these are all things that MSDs can actually impact. So, risk factors for MSDs. So can anyone shout out some of the risk factors that may predispose you to MSDs? A little bit tricky than the last question. Genetics, yep.
Age.
Yep. Repetitive work, yeah.
Previous injury.
Yeah, previous injury, if you haven't had proper rehab, because you're more prone. If you've had an injury and you haven't had it rehab properly, then yes, you could come back and do it time and time again. Classic example of that is Sunday league footballers, for example, who pull their hamstring on a Sunday. They go home and they manage it incorrectly, and then they're walking around okay in the next week, and then they go back to playing, so they can just about walk fine, go back to training again on Wednesday night, it goes again, and there's a cycle of keeping it, constantly re-injuring. It's the same with back pain and shoulder pain. Unless you have the correct rehab, you're kind of predisposed to these. So, things such as static postures. Any environments here, maybe working on a production line where people are very static. Improper manual handling. So if you're not following all the kind of main principles of manual handling, then yes, you are going to injure yourself. Overreaching, trying to generate forces from reaching like this, or trying to lift, bending forwards and twisting. So a combination of flexion and rotation, you're sure going to injure your back. So keeping everything in a good alignment and using your big, powerful muscles is really, really important. Reduce fitness levels, so the less fit you are, the more prone you are to developing. Anyone here will put their hand up if you sit for more than 6 or 7 hours at a time during the day? Maybe people not owning up to it. But depending on the kind of industry, you may be moving around a lot more. We work with companies, some office-based companies where people come into work, they drive to the sitting, they sit on their desk, they work all day, they al desco dine, which is having dinner at your desk, al desco dining, and then they get up and they might go to the toilet once or twice during the day, make a cup of tea, then they sit in the car, they go home and they sit on their sofa. So they're in a seated position for a long, long time. And the latest research shows that if you're sat for more than 7 hours a day, you're at a much, much higher risk of developing certain types of cancers, diabetes, cardiovascular disease. So 10, 20 years ago, if you were sat at a desk, people would say, come on, you need to get up and move about, you're going to get a bad back. But now the statistics show that there's a much more higher risk for general health. So it's really important to get up and move about. So prolonged sitting, heavy or repetitive work, environmental temperature, noise, things like that. If you've got a draft in a certain position you're working, you tend to kind of try to protect your neck. That can predispose you to it. Poor lifestyle, so inactivity, if you're morbidly obese. And also psychological factors such as stress and anxiety, because if you are stressed, people tend to kind of collect more in the way of injuries. So those are some of your risk factors, and some of those may jump out at you as managers or working in different environments, and some of those may be applicable to your environment. So just going to talk a bit about MSD early management, and this is absolutely crucial. So I'll just use the example of a Sunday League footballer again, because in my previous work, before I worked in occupational health, I was working in professional sport. And we'll get lots of, Sunday League footballers will be coming in as well with hamstring problems. And what they tend to do is they rip or pull a muscle. You don't really know what's happened, but they're in a lot of pain. So they go into the bar afterwards and have 6 or 7 Stellas, and then they may go to a nightclub, or they might try, maybe not on a Sunday, but on a Saturday. May go and do a little bit of dancing, makes it a little bit worse. They might get home and say, right, do you know what, I'll just jump in a hot bath and try to relax it like that. These are some of the worst things that you can possibly do. Because what you're trying to do when you have an initial injury is you're trying to protect the area first of all. So you can move within your comfort zones. And a great thing rule is basically if it hurts when you're moving, don't move so much, but move within your pain limits. And that's a really good way of looking at it. Ice is really effective at applying ice to a new injury. So if you pull your back really badly or you strain a muscle, and by applying ice for about 10 to 15 minutes, so crushed ice around the area, can actually reduce the overall damage that's caused. It's also about trying to reduce the temperature of that muscle just so that there's less demands on it and the healing can take place better and quicker. Compressing it as well can reduce swelling. So a compression bandage on a calf or a knee is really useful as well. And keeping it elevated is really important. So then you can help to keep the swelling down as well. So there's lots of these things that you've got some leaflets on your tables which are how to manage aches and pains, and there's some good advice on there about, and you're welcome to, take these leaflets and we can give you an electronic copy as well, and these you can pass on to your employees so they're able to manage it more effectively and not actually doing more harm than good. So we're going to move on to prevention of MSDs. So there's a whole load of things you can do here to try to prevent them. One is looking at risk and actually having sort of a job demands and a risk analysis of these particular jobs, so you can start to eliminate some of the risks there. Correct posture, use of manual handling, good manual handling and using aids where possible. I think I was chatting with Lauren yesterday about pushing some, what were they, containers, Lauren? Which were really, really low. And we work with Morrison's nationally and all their manufacturing and logistics. And in their sausage making factory in Bradford, they have these huge tubs of sausage meat, and they weigh 200 kilos. And they're quite low, so they're down here. And they have handles that they can use to push. But because there's only 5 in this particular, and there's more now, but there's only 5 in there, they actually have to go and find them to actually attach onto these carts. And so they're pushing them like this, trying to shift 200 kilos of sausage meat bent in this position. And I was treating an employee, he was getting better, but he said, every time I go back to work, I'm in pain. So I watched him, and he was pushing it like that. So I was fixing him, but he was going back into this same environment. And I said, well, where's the handle? He said, oh, they're around the corner. So he put it on, and then he's pushing it like this, no pain at all. I mean, to me, that's kind of common sense, but actually, and these were a really low-cost solution. They only needed a few more, and they would have been absolutely fine. So actually using manual handling aids is really important to try to reduce it. People who are in static positions for a long time, it's really important that they move away from that environment and they actually stretch. Some companies now, we're looking at more preventative. I think in the past, it's a very reactive service that we provide, so we're there to help people once they've actually broken, but now we're trying to prevent things. So we're being involved with companies now and actually taking regular breaks and actually moving away. We've recently working with a sofa manufacturer, and there's lots of people who are basically stooped over doing sewing. And they'll do an 8 or 9 hour shift in this hunched position like this. And what we're introducing is regular breaks. Every couple of hours, they just stop, everyone stops, and they're starting to do some stretching of the neck and back. And we're starting to introduce that now. and the initial results are really promising. They feel so much more comfortable. So it's only stopping for about a minute every 2 hours, but actually just a change of postures is really, really important. So these are the kind of things that are, low-cost intervention, will cost you nothing, but actually just putting these in can make a real difference. Keeping fit is really important, encouraging your staff to get away. Lots of people are guilty of, as I mentioned before, al desco dining. So there's a culture of, well, I'll have a sandwich at my desk at lunchtime, and they may be in the same environment working on their laptop and things. Get up and move about, get up and encourage people. Maybe even introduce a desk fine. So, okay, you can have your lunch at your desk, but it's going to cost you £1, and we'll put £1 towards charity. As soon as you start putting a cost involved with it, that people get up and move away from their desks. But this is a real cultural thing, and it takes a lot of change to actually to put these, to get this accepted, if you like. Lots of, again, correct equipment, lifestyle changes, weight loss. As companies, you may put in some interventions and encourage sort of weight loss and actually exercise, and all these things can actually help prevent musculoskeletal disorders. Also using things like relaxation and stress. I think these are really coming into the picture now. And people it was Mental Health Awareness Day yesterday, and it was seen on LinkedIn that lots and lots of companies now are taking part in this, which is great. So managing stress, managing anxiety is a major part of this as well. And it's actually just getting people to look at their breathing. It can make a massive difference to preventing these kind of problems. Okay, just going to take a little sip of water. We're going to move on to look at different types of postures here. So have a look at these postures here, and they may be familiar either with yourselves or people you know. Now, with today's lifestyle, we spend all our time in what we call flex postures. So everything we do is here in front of us. Very little, or some out to the sides, but we spend all our time in one plane of movement. So we bend forwards, we lift, we do everything here. And gyms, up until recently, have been very guilty of providing one plane of movement. Okay, so the machines are bicep curls, pressing away, lifting above your head, like this. And very few machines 10, 15 years ago were involved in any kind of rotation exercises. And this was purely down to commercial side of things, because as soon as you end up taking more room, the revenue per square foot of a gym goes down. So they try to cram everything in. And it's easier to put in machines that just do this than it is to bring in rotation. So it's all about square footage and maximizing income. Now, our bodies are designed to bend, twist, and turn. Okay, we are hunter-gatherers. This is what we used to do. We used to run and chase and rotate and spin. We used to turn. We're just used to working like this. Okay, so we get up in the morning, we go down the stairs, we go to have breakfast, we eat here. You maybe load the dishwasher, you put stuff in the sink, you brush your teeth, you get in the car, you drive, you go up the stairs or use a lift, you sat down in front of your PC, and it's very, very easy just to stay in one plane of movement the whole time, so flexing forwards and back. Now, I got a whole load of occupational health nurses a few months ago to stand up in a room and just to rotate about 10 times. My back's cracking now because I'm quite stiff this morning. But just to rotate 10 times left and right. And then people go, oh, God, oh, God, calling out in pain. Now, these are natural movements. These are all movements that we should be able to do on a regular basis. But everyone said, God, I can't remember the last time I did that. Now, our bodies are designed to bend, twist, and turn. So if you're not used to that environment, and then you go and do something which involves that, and also you bring a bit of resistance into it, you're going to get an injury. So it's all about encouraging movement and good postures. So you can see here in the first... in this picture here, I've got a red button, no. The one on the left here, a very kind of flex posture, okay? Again, people who are slumped in front of a computer, this is where people suddenly start sitting up straight in their chairs. People are in this position, this predisposes you to lots of kind of nervy kind of problems, tingling and pins and needles and things. So the green man there is a kind of ideal posture with a S-shaped bend at the base of your back and all nice and lined. Okay. Sitting postures. So who's guilty of this first picture here in front of their PC or their laptop? No one's owning up to it. I bet you there's not many who are sat in a great posture, okay? So you can have the world's most expensive ergonomically designed chair, £600 or £700, no problem. But if you sit in that, even in a good posture all day, every day, you're going to get a knackered back. I can vouch for it, I can tell you that. So companies are really strange. If someone has back pain, they say, oh, I need a new chair. And companies will throw £600 or £700 for a new chair for someone because it's legislation, that's what they've got to do. So they pay for that. They don't get a £40 physiotherapy assessment to actually get to the root cause of it. Because if I've got a tight muscle here, which is a really common area to get tightness, and you have the world's most expensive chair, that's not going to get better on its own. That chair's not going to stretch you and stretch that muscle out. So if you do have employees who are suffering with back pain in the chair, okay, they might need to have a look at their workstation assessment and make some small adjustments, but get them assessed by a physio who can actually get to the root cause, because it might cost you 40 quid as opposed to 400 or 500 quid for a chair. And when you do get that chair, they're going to have to go for physio anyway because their back's going to be in bits. There are some rules, very simple rules that you can go by with people sat in chairs. And if you remember as one thing, the 90-degree rule, then that's a pretty good starter, really. So when you're working at a computer, when you're typing, your arms should be at 90 degrees, so elbow underneath your shoulder, and your wrists nicely supported. Likewise, when you're sat, your hips and knees should be at 90 degrees as well. Even things like, for shorter people, they're on a chair which might not go so low, their feet are dangling down and causes pressure at the back of the legs and can throw your spine out of its good positions as well. So there are some really good basic ergonomic advice as well, and I can make available to Tom some basic ergonomic charts and workstation kind of advice as well. So we'll be able to give that to you electronically, which Tom can make available to all you as well. So changing your posture regularly, stretching breaks, so getting up regularly, away from your desk, so you're changing your posture, so you're going from what we call a flex posture to getting up and moving about. So, get up and have a bit of a stretch, and all these things can bring significant improvements to pain as well. Adjusting the height of your chair and table, just so you're in good alignments. Lots of people sit twisted, so the chairs can't quite get right into their table, so they're working like this and twisting. I saw one lady a couple of years ago who she had, I think it was left-sided neck pain, and when I asked her to describe her workstation, to the right-hand side, it was a big open office plan, and the door was there, so every time someone came and she turned, I said, oh, good morning, work like this. And I said, what's on to your left? She goes, oh, just a wall. I said, right, how often do you look over your left shoulder? Well, I don't, because there's nothing there. I don't look at a blank wall. So her movement, she had full movement this way, because she was gassing with everyone in the office, chatting away, no problem. Good morning, welcome everyone as they came into the office, never turn left. So she could look that way, this way, she couldn't move. Her neck was completely stiff, because she never, when she went home from work, she rubbed it a little bit, but she never did any stretches. So a simple solution, I gave her some stretches which was improving, but I said just try sitting on the other desk, the other side. So she swapped places, and then she was having to look over her left shoulder, and in a couple of weeks everything cleared up. And she'd been sat on that desk for about 15 years and had this neck pain for 15 years. Really, really simple solutions. Also working in your brick site, what people tend to do is they tend to have their favorite side. So they'll be, they may twist constantly to the right. It's really important to do everything the other way as well. It's almost you start unraveling yourself, because if you're working constantly this way, you're going to get problems on this right-hand side. So try to encourage doing things the other side. It might take a little bit of time to get used to it. People wrapping pallets always wrap it the same way. So it's all about muscle imbalance and looking at ways in which you can help that. Driving posture, the number of times I'm really nosy when I'm driving, in slow traffic, having a look at people's posture, you see people wedged right over the steering wheel like this, poking the neck forward. You can just think, oh God, they must be in so much pain. And taxi drivers are the worst. Yeah. But no seatbelt as well. So I say, what happens when you go through the screen, land on your head? They don't wear seatbelts because they're scared of someone attacking them from behind. So I said, well, there's probably more chance of you going through your windscreen than some crazy dude, attacking you from behind. But whenever I get in a taxi, I'm always telling them to sit up, and they change their postures. I said, oh, you must have did like this, and their backs are knackered. And you sit them up straight, and they go, my God, that feels so weird. And I say to them, leave it like that just for a day, and just see how you go. Because, this isn't great, is it, really? So taxi drivers are worse. Now, I can't get in a taxi without giving advice. I'm really nosy. Also, in traffic jams, slow traffic, people see hunched over. You can make some really good adjustments to your chair and actually put yourself in a more decent position. Avoid stooping if possible, just the height position of the seat, and take regular breaks on long drives as well. There may be some of you driving, up and down the motorway, sales or whatever. Make sure you take regular breaks because changing your posture is really, really important. I touched on a little bit about manual handling. And I watched a really, really interesting clip on YouTube the other day about children and manual handling. And it's worth going back, if any of you are involved in kind of manual handling, just go onto YouTube and just tap in something like children correct lifting techniques. Because as children, if you put something heavy down on the floor, I'm going to use my water bottle, though it's not very heavy. So a child up to the age of 2, I believe, is an age where you get late. Basically, as adults, we're lazy with manual handling. So children will come up to lift that, and they'll lift down like this, and they'll pull it in close to them, and they'll stand up like that. You don't get a 2-year-old going, do you? Has anyone got children, young kids? Try this experiment at home. Put some, I'm not talking like 100 kilos or something on the floor. You're going to snap them in half. But give them an object and say, will you go and pick that up for me? So they'll wander over, and they'll squat down, and if the load's there, they'll bring the load in close to them, hug it to their chest, and stand up. Now, these are following the main principles of manual handling. As we get older, something goes click, and then we become lazy, so we just do this. So a good friend of mine is an ergonomist, and he showed me this and did the experiment with his kids as well, and it was really interesting. I think it's the age of 3 or something that people's manual handling techniques just completely change. So we all know that this is a poor lifting technique here. We worked with the dray industry, so these are guys delivering 10 tons of beer to pubs every day. And they introduced a new way of delivery. So they would take out 9 tons of beer out to pubs. And they brought a thing in called, I think it was called drop and finish. So when you've delivered your beer, when you've delivered everything, you can finish for the day. Oh, brilliant. So if they start work at 6 o'clock, they can be done by just after lunch. Perfect, get paid for a whole day. So what do they start doing? Cutting corners. So they were carrying slabs of beer into pubs, cases and things. And instead of moving things to get to things, they were leaning over and trying to grab, a whole big pack of Alco Pops, leaning right over in this position, putting themselves in a vulnerable position, and then giving it a good hoik and a good lift. And they were pulling shoulder muscles, they were injuring their backs, all sorts of things, and the injuries went through the roof. And they were trying to do this to kind of save time and increase the volume, but they were getting all sorts of injuries. Excuse me. The other thing that they looked at was instead of manually loading the trucks up with beer barrels, they would do it with a forklift truck. So they were on a pallet and they would lift them up. Now that sounded great, and for a while, initially, the back pain was getting better. But what the forklift trucks were doing was they were bashing into the rails on the side of the lorry and putting dents in. So at the end of the day, when they were closing the curtains, pull, they were dislocating their shoulders and ripping their shoulder muscles. So one manual handling kind of improvement was actually causing other problems. The manager was going, our back pain's going down, but I've got 4 guys who are off sick with rotator cuff tears. And when you tear a rotator cuff muscle, as a drayman, you can more or less kiss goodbye to your career, because if it requires surgery, that's 9 months of not moving your arm above shoulder height, and then it's about 18 months before you can get back. So it's great. It's not a great thing. So one thing I'll say about lifting, and typically I see a lot of patients who will get injuries from lifting plant tubs in the garden. Okay, that's one thing. The other one is airport carousels. That's a great way for watching people. Next time I go to the airport, I'm just going to have a whole load of business cards and just stand there and hand them out. Because there's airport carousels, you're standing there for hours, aren't you, waiting for your luggage. And you're just watching everyone go, where's my bloody, getting this taxi. And then it comes past, and you clock it, but you don't realize, and then oh shit, that's mine. And then you're reaching out, aren't you? You go out and try to grab it, and you're trying to generate force from there, and then no one gets out of the way, do they? No one gets out of the way. Everyone's fighting, and then they feel as if they've got to stand right next to the bar. You go up, and they end up ripping their shoulders. So lots of people I've seen injuring their shoulders lifting. As a basic rule of thumb, if you're going to lift something, if your mind tells you that it's too heavy, then it is. Your mind will tell you, if you look at that, you go, my God, that looks heavy, I shouldn't lift that. If your mind tells you that, then don't lift it. That's a two-man lift or, using some kind of equipment. That's a really good way of thinking. If your mind is telling you it's too heavy, don't do it. What happens if you are twisted when you're lifting as well? You are more prone to injuring. So really avoid twisting, and don't overstrain. Lifting with twisted as well. So, keeping yourself fit for the job. So we've got some things here about the benefits of exercise. So general exercise and encouraging people to exercise will increase your muscle strength and will enable you to be fitter for your job. Your increased flexibility, that means if you are working in kind of confined spaces and moving, then you'll be fitter to reach and to get into those positions. Increased cardiovascular fitness will mean that you're fitter and there's less fatigue. When you're tired and when you're fatigued, when you're doing something and when you go and lift, that's when you're going to have accidents and make mistakes. So fatigue is a really big thing, which is why it's so important to take regular breaks. The benefits of exercise also a decrease in health risks as well. It makes you feel good. I don't think I've ever exercised and think, God, I really wish I hadn't done that. The whole benefits, mental health and well-being is so important. So you can encourage your employees to take breaks at lunchtime, to go out and walk outside, a bit more difficult in the winter when it's howling down with wind and rain, but actually encouraging people to get out and actually get away from their desk at lunchtime is a really, really simple thing you can do, and actually just making people aware. So we'd be happy to provide some information about that, some posters that you can potentially put up around your different sites, just the benefits and exercise. So we can quite happily do that for you. So Tom can pass those on to you. Sleeping better. So someone mentioned about sleep. Sleep is really important. I'm quite happy to mention this. Last year I went through quite a bit of stress with various things going on in my life, and suddenly I just stopped sleeping for about 2 months. I was getting about 40 minutes a day, 40 minutes a night for about 2 weeks. And anyone that's been through sleep problems, God, an absolute nightmare. You just can't function. It doesn't make you want to exercise. You just want to give up exercise because you're just absolutely exhausted the whole time. And everything can be affected. You cut corners. You're kind of more anxious and things like that. So sleep is really, really important. And exercise is one of the major things to help with that. You feel more relaxed and de-stress as well. So actually encouraging a workforce to be more active is really beneficial. And it's all about keeping yourself fit for that job. Some other considerations as well in terms of the working environment. Does anyone kind of encourage kind of walking meetings? Or, instead of on the phone, you get up and walk. Particularly during the summer, it's a bit better. If you're on the phone going to be on the phone for half an hour, get up and move away from your desk, What I find is they don't go and walk up a really steep hill because it gets a bit of a panty kind of conversation. One of those kind of... but actually encouraging meetings and walking out is really good. And people are really understanding. Say, I'm going to take this meeting whilst I'm walking, if that's okay. Using the stairs, this is a really interesting area about stairs, because we did some work with a company a couple of years ago on the South Coast, and whilst I was waiting reception, I was just watching people come in, and using a lift is a really habitual thing. And people's excuses, and there was definitely a difference between like the demographics of people using stairs, but also one reason why I did ask a couple of people, why are you using the lift and not stairs? And they were going out to a Costa Coffee next door and getting 2 coffees. So they couldn't open the doors. They had 2 hands, so they did the lift button with their elbow and got the lift up. And they were 3 flights up. And if they had 1 coffee in their hand, they'd open the door and walk up the stairs. And also they might have a bag. So it was just laziness, basically. And they didn't appreciate the benefits of actually using the stairs. Because stairs are normally a bit of a boring place, aren't they? Nothing really happens on the stairs, does it? You kind of go up and you go down. So my idea was actually introducing a lift tax. So, okay, you can use a lift, and if you're able-bodied and able to use the stairs, you can use the lift if you want to. It's £1 every time you go up and down the lift, and and you put the £1 in for charity. So there's a big red button around the lift. So It just makes you think. And then inside the lift, there's all this stuff about how being inactive is really bad for you and you're going to die and all this kind of stuff. So kind of, and no one wants to have to spend £5 and get them down the lift every day. Make the stairs a fun place to be. Have some pipes, some funky music in there. So you walk in, you open it, hey, yeah, this is, you know, so you start to bring a smile onto your face. And also you can have something like an Everest challenge. So it's 33,000 feet up to Everest. At the top of the stairs, bang a button, you see a total going up. Let's see how quickly our business can get to the top of Everest, 33,000 feet. So we've worked with a couple of companies to do this, and it just brings a smile to people's faces. Along the thing of finding people is, I mentioned before, Aldesco dining. You go around, you have a lunch monitor, goes around and finds you for having your lunch at your desk as well. So you're going to be raising so much money for charity. Or none, hopefully, because everyone's up and moving about and they won't get fined. Regular stretching throughout the day. I spoke about that before, about encouraging people to take regular breaks and to move. So that's a really good thing to do as well. So when to get help. Okay, so this is when to actually seek advice from a professional. I would always recommend a physiotherapist over a chiropractor or an osteopath, because that's what I do. So early intervention is key. Even if you start to get a bit of a niggling problem, you might just need a little bit of advice, and you can nip it in the bud to stop it from getting worse. Lots of companies we work with, when we first start working with them, they've got this whole cohort of people that have had issues for a long time, and they come in. And they get to a point where they're working through it, and then they just go off sick because they can't cope anymore. Now, that's a really bad place to be. And as historically, when we work with companies over time, we get these, long-term repeat offenders, should we say. And as we get those people better, then gradually over time, we're starting to see people when they're just starting to develop problems. And this is where it's really key to work with managers and HR to understand their part in sickness absence management and the management of MSDs. If you have got a line manager who doesn't care, doesn't really give a monkeys about anything, and someone says to them, look, I've got this bad shoulder, and they say, just get on with it. I don't want to know about it. That person's going to go on and on and on, and then they're going to go off sick, which will have a massive impact to that business. The smaller the business, to have someone absent, the more impact it's going to have. So big companies with 100,000 employees, they can have hundreds of people off, and it's not really going to impact so much. But for smaller companies, to have one or two people off in key positions is going to have a massive, massive impact on your business. My understanding is it's actually quite high, some of the jobs that people are doing in your environments are really highly skilled, so you can't just get an agency cover in, so your whole productivity might go down. So as managers and directors of companies, it's really important to get involved with this because you get a massive return of investment on it, and encouraging people, if you had things in place, encouraging people to get help, because then you can keep your attendance up and stop people from going off work. Just through some small modifications of roles and things within a certain task, you can make some small modifications. People don't necessarily need to go off sick. It's very, very rare that we would say you need to be off work unless someone's got an obvious disc prolapse and they've got this really, really serious injury. So most people can remain at work with some small modification of tasks and things. So early intervention, physios can have more of an impact on someone's injury in the acute or subacute phases rather than getting someone who's had a back problem for 25 years. Many MSDs don't require further intervention if early management is followed. So some basic advice on the MICE principle, movement, movement, ice, compression, elevation. Sometimes all they need is that little bit of advice, but sometimes they just need a bit of encouragement and a bit of reassurance that what they've got isn't going to put them in a wheelchair in 10 years, which, trust me, is a lot of people think. They injure their back and they Dr. Google, thank you, Dr. Google, have a little look at that. Doctors told me I got degenerative disc disease. Sounds horrific, doesn't it? It's wear and tear in your back. And I would guarantee, because I'm taking most people over the age of 30 in this room, I think, maybe some other youngsters, but over the age of 30, everyone has wear and tear in their back. So if you x-rayed all your backs, unfortunately, everyone's going to show wear and tear. It doesn't mean that you've got symptoms, but you're going to have some wear and tear in your back. Likewise, there was a study done a couple of years ago with 1,000 people had MRIs of their low back. There were more people that had disc bulges in their L4-5 vertebra, right at the base of the back. There were more people that had disc bulges and no symptoms than had disc bulges and symptoms. So again, in this room, there may be 30 or 40 people, if you were MRI scanned your back, you've got a disc bulge. but with no symptoms, no neurology, no pain, nothing. Now, the problem with going to get x-rays and scans is doctors are terrible at doing this. If you go in with a problem and they say, let's get you scanned just to see what's going on, if you were told you got a prolapsed disc or a slipped disc in your back, it's going to make you go, oh, God. That might not be the cause of your pain. Your cause of your pain might be a muscular problem. But because you've got a disc problem comes up, the doctor says, there you are, that's your problem, you need an operation. So then you go for surgery, have surgery, you don't get better because you've actually got tight muscles and not a disc problem. So, sorry, I'm getting my soapbox about GPs, I better rein myself in a bit. Ooh, a little bit controversial. So we don't recommend scans and x-rays as part of the course. Only if their symptoms are potentially getting worse and surgical intervention may be an option. I would say it's about 1% of the population. Because once you're told you've got something wrong with you, you're going to just protect yourself and you're not going to want to do anything. Because if you're told you've got arthritis, it's all doom and gloom, apparently, but it's not. Right. So that's given you a kind of an idea. What I've got on the next slide is, for those of you who are up to a bit of audience participation, we've got some exercises, okay, to a nice little funky tune. This is where we hope on breaking an unofficial world record of having, do you call yourself ceramic professionals? What would you, is that a good term? Yeah? Okay. The world record attempt is to get 200 ceramic professionals exercising at the same time in one room. I don't think it's been done anywhere before. I can't say for sure if we do it, it's going to get into the official world record, Guinness Book of World Records, but it's something you can go home and tell your friends, isn't it? Yeah, we've done it. And one thing to be careful, I'll demonstrate some of the exercise. So the first exercise is going to be on your knees. Now, you don't have to do this one, but it's going to be some rotations. What I would say, if anyone has any current or underlying musculoskeletal problems, just be a little bit wary. Also, if you're wearing a short skirt and it's quite tight, this includes the men, if you're wearing a short skirt, don't do any of the lunges, because when I was doing this in London a few weeks ago, I had an HR director rip the skirt right up the back, which was just rather embarrassing. Okay, so there are going to be some lunges, okay, some little lunges like that, and there's going to be some little rotations as well. Okay, it really will get you up and moving about. So if you don't want to, just stay in your seat. If you'd like to, just find yourself a little bit of space. They are fun. It will be a good interactive thing to do, and then we can have a go at it. So if you have any problems, don't over-push yourself, all right? But you've been sat in your bums for about an hour and a half now, so stand up anyway. I say let's get everyone up on the feet anyway. Push the chairs away. And try not to take anyone's eyes out when you're rotating as well. So I know you're going to be really this looks really good, by the way. I wish I had a camera here. Okay, so this is a 2-minute video, okay? You don't have to do all the repetitions. And there's one exercise in here where Byron, who was the model in the video, is smuggling a budgie, and you can see which one it is, because it's quite funny. Okay, so if this technology works, just take it easy. We haven't signed any kind of NDAs or, any kind of forms here, kind of consent forms. So please, no injuries, all right? There is someone from the health and safety here who might be going, oh, my God. We're not going to be standing and jumping across tables or anything. I do have some gym balls just after this to do some exercise, but I can show you that. Hopefully it's going to work. Any aches and pains, don't do it, but have a little go. You don't have to do the first one, by the way. We'll just watch the first one because it's where you're kneeling down. So just ignore the first one. You'll get the idea, and we can move on to the second one, okay? Just make sure you've got a little bit of room in front of you just so you can do a slight lunge. So you can just watch this first one. It kind of puts you in the kind of idea. As you can see, Byron and I go to the same hairdressers. Okay, so this is the next exercise. So nice and gentle here. Try not to take anyone's heads off. So just have a little gentle one. Okay, and then just have a look at your next exercise, which is coming up. So this is marching on the spot. Okay, this is the budgie smuggler. Just look at it from the side. Okay, getting a bit tricky here now. Are we all still alive? Doing well so far? Okay, you're doing really well. I think we've got another 2 exercises. Just building up an appetite for lunch. Okay, again, we've just got a slight step forward and lunging one way. Well done, everyone. Just breaking the world record. Well done. Right, I'll let you get your breath back. Right. No injuries? If anyone's hurt themselves, I've got a business card. You just have to come and see me and I'll rehab you, all right? Now, is everyone okay, by the way? Yeah, everyone's got their heart rate up. So that's 2 minutes of exercise, and the evidence shows, research shows, that even doing short bursts of exercise like this can be massively beneficial. So we're looking at actually incorporating this exercise into some of our office environments so we can have this playing on a loop, and every few hours they're going to be playing this video so people can come up and just mobilize. Because it's, you know, there was lots of rotation exercise in there, which is really important. Okay, now, I don't know how, if any of you, Tom looks really interested in doing some exercise. He said he, when I was up on stage, he did say, look, John, can I be a model for you, please? So, thank you very much. Give me just a little clap for Tom, because he's just going to come up in there. Thank you. This was in the agenda. Did you not see it? Okay, now, has anyone used a gym ball before? Yeah? How many of you have got a gym ball at home? Show of hands. Right up, right up. Keep your hands up if it's deflated and it's in the loft. Yeah? So most people, or quite a few people have these, right? Because, you know, they go, well, do you know what, you can have a sit on it, Tom, if you like. Just don't fall off. A few people buy these because they think, you know, I'm going to help them with back pain, but they get them home and think, what the hell do I do with it? And when people are at the gym, they look at it and they go, do you know, I really want to use that, but do you know what, I'm a bit scared of it because I don't know what to do with it. It's not the kind of thing you just jump on and start doing some exercise with it because you're going to look a bit silly and you might injure yourself. So, anyone heard of Jonah Lomu, rugby player? Sadly died of kidney disease a few years ago. He used to stand on one of these on one foot and do dumbbells. Okay, I'm not quite that good, but his stability was really, really good. So you can kneel on these. I mean, I'm not suggesting we do that, but these are a really, really effective tool and kit for helping to stretch and mobilize your back. And the reason why it's so good is it's an unstable surface. So you see Tom, who's sitting in a terrible posture at the moment. Thank you very much. So, and people say, can I use these for, you know, at my desk? The answer is not really, because health and safety over there will have a word to say about it. They're good in an office. Okay, they are a trip hazard, I know, okay? If something sharp goes into it, it'll go down slowly, as opposed to bang, like some of the cheap ones. You can get cheap ones from Argos for about £5. These are about 20 quid and much better quality. So if something sharp goes into it, it will deflate very, very slowly. But you can see that if I give Tom a little nudge, okay, all his muscles are having to work to stabilize themselves and to stop them from falling off. So it is a training tool, so it's a bit like a treadmill. If you're on a treadmill, you're moving constantly. Tom's muscles are constantly working to keep himself in an upright position. If not, he would just fall off the ball. Over time, when you sit on it, your muscles start to fatigue and you end up slumping. So go back to where you were sitting, like that, okay? So, and that's not doing anything for your posture and for your muscles. So sitting in an upright position like this, and it is true it is important, the size of your balls is important, okay? So it's not a joke. So when you're sat on the ball, if your balls are really big, okay, then you're going to be too high up off the floor. If your balls are too small, you're going to be chewing your kneecaps, all right? So you need to make sure that you've got the right size ball for your height. So Tom, how tall are you? 5'7". So Tom's needs a 65 centimetre gym ball. So anyone up to about 5'2" needs 55 centimetre, up to about 5'9", 5'10", 65, and if you're taller, then 75. Okay? So when you're sat on it, hips and knees should be at 90 degrees. In an office environment, these are really good. If you sit on it for about 15 minutes, twice a day, pass the ball around. Because what you can do is just do some really simple exercises to help with your back. Okay? So what I'm going to do is show you a few exercises that can be really helpful. So if you have a ball at home and you've never used it, this will hopefully give you a bit of insight as to how it can help. Now, excuse me, when you're sat at a computer, the reason why you can't really use these for DSE is it throws out all your kind of, good angles and good postures. So you might be typing like this, okay, or you might be typing like that. That's no good, so it's not really doing it. But actually sat in the office and actually might be on the phone for a while, there's no reason why you can't use it, just to do some stretching whilst you're sat on it. Okay, so we're going to go over a few exercises. Now, Tom, it's really important that you adopt this cheesy grin that that Alex here has in his photos. It just shows that you're really enjoying yourself. So, what we're going to do, I'm going to demonstrate it. Are you okay with this, by the way? I have put him on the spot. He didn't agree to it, so I feel a bit naughty. So when you're sat there, let's sit in a good posture, so nice and straight. And so your optimal posture, again, is everything at kind of 90 degrees. You want to be nice and relaxed, not too regimented, because that's not a natural posture. So what we're going to do is just go from side to side. And what we're doing is we're transferring the weight from sitting bone to sitting bone, okay? Women are much better than guys at doing this, because guys are just, I can't do it, like this. But women tend to be much more coordinated, okay? So you're going from side to side. And it's important that you keep your shoulders still and just move from your hips. Now, what this is doing is spreading all the natural, what we call synovial fluid around the spine. So if you've got a stiff back, then this is really good at just easing that kind of problem, all right? So the next one, similar. You're all right with this? It's on camera as well, isn't it? You just remembered that. Okay, we're doing a little circle with a little, like you're spinning a hula hoop around your waist. Again, try to keep your shoulders still. We're going around one way, and then... Okay, so this is a really good one. This is a really good one for mobilizing the base of your back. So, forward and back hip roll. This is about pelvic tilting. Lots of people have stiff backs like this, and they can't, they have problem dissociating their low back from their pelvis. So actually doing this kind of movement, what's called a pelvic tilt, is really, really difficult. Now, if there's one exercise for to reduce back pain, this is a really nice one. So you can go back to where you were slumped on, and then sit up straight, okay, and then slump down. Well, you've not quite got that, so he's a guy. So a woman would just be able to do this, no problem. So what you're doing is you're rolling the ball forwards, like that, and then you're sticking your bum out. That's it. So rolling down, and then sticking your bum up. So it's a really easy way of kind of mobilizing the back, okay? Seated rotation, we did some rotations earlier. Rotations are things that we tend not to do, but it's a really, really good way of reducing kind of injury. So sit up nice and straight, slow it down a little bit, cross your arms across your chest. Just fold across, like that. Oh, he's easy, isn't he? Right, turn to the left, that way, and then round to the right. So again, if we're in front of a PC or driving all day, we get really, really stiff. This is a really, really good way of reducing that stiffness. Now, seated twist. Has anyone got a really, really bad back, is really, really stiff, finds it, you're walking like this a lot. Okay, we don't like turning around, do we? We kind of like someone calls you, and you turn around like that. We don't, you see my arms aren't swinging. When we walk opposite arm to opposite leg. So this is an exaggeration, but this is how we walk, okay? We don't walk like this, because if we did, we'd all be laughing at each other, wouldn't we? It's a bit kind of Michael McIntyre, isn't it? But you don't see anyone walking like this. Okay, so we walk opposite arm to opposite leg. Now, when you've got a stiff back, that movement really reduces, okay? And a seated twist is a really, really good way of doing this. So hands on your knees. You're going to slide one hand towards your kind of groin and look over your right shoulder. And if you look down, it looks like one leg shorter than the other because you're getting some rotation in your pelvis. And then you go back the other way. So you're going back and forth. So that's a really good way. So if you've got a really stiff back, this is a really nice one to do. Would you like to sit down now, Tom? Well, we'll have a little round of applause, Tom. Thank you. I don't have any problems in showing my bum in the air, so this is a cat stretch, and this is a really good one for your middle of your back and your low back. And this basically involves up and down like a cat stretch. So Tom, you're probably glad you didn't do this one. Yeah. So sticking your bum right out, show it off. You could even get a little puppy eyes looking over your back if you like. Okay, so you're up and down. Again, this is really good for mobilizing the base of the back. Okay, this ball hug. I had a patient, I like to use examples. I had a patient a couple of years ago came to see me, and he had, on the advice of his GP, had been told to go to bed and lie down until his back pain had got better. 3 months, he was bedbound, and absolute agony, and he came in almost dragging his leg, and he was so white and pale. He had been on painkillers, he was drugged up to his eyeballs and was really struggling. And he had raging sciatica. Has anyone had sciatica before? Burning pins and needles down your leg? So it was off the scale. So on a scale between 0 and 10, he said, look, it's not even registering, it's like 12. Burning pain down here, right down into his big toe. And he'd been in bed, and he said, I can't do anything. And his mental health was in a really, really bad place, and he said, look, I don't know what to do with myself. He was so bad I couldn't get him onto the physio bed because he was just in so much pain. So I got him leaning over the gym ball. And what happens when we're walking, sitting, standing, driving, we've always got downward pressure going through our spine. So there's always compression going on. And if you have any nerve problems, that nerve gets compressed and can touch on your nerve and cause you sciatica. So that's what a lot of sciatica is about. So he came in, he was like this, and got him down onto the floor, and he leant over the ball, and he went, oh, God, John, that's good. Oh, God, John, oh, God, that's amazing. And it was getting louder and louder, and I had people in the waiting room. And he was going, oh, God, John, that's the best it's ever been. Oh, my God, John. And I was going, shh, shh. When you go out, people are going to say, oh, okay, I'll have some of that, please. Okay. But for the first time in 3 months, what he'd done is opened up and introduced some traction to his spine. So it's equivalent of hanging on a door frame or a climbing frame where you open up your joints. Now, I'm not suggesting that you go and hang from a door or a climbing frame because you're not really in control of it, but this is a really good way of doing it. If you're one of those people that suffers with really kind of tight back pain, this is a lovely exercise. And for the first time in 3 months, he had opened up his joints, and the nerve which had been pinched was basically taken off. The pressure was taken off. So he had pain relief for the first time in 3 months. And he said, oh, God, after I calmed him down a little bit, he said, oh, just leave me here all day. Leave me here, leave me here. And I said, well, what? And so he was in pain. And he said, do you know what the crazy thing is, John? He said, I've got a ball by the side of my bed, but I just didn't know what to do with it. So instead of 3 months in bed, he could have done some of these exercises. But on the advice of his GP, you need to stay in bed until it's better. But something simple like this, and you can go a little bit further and basically open up the joints in the base of your back. It's a really, really nice way, and it just takes that pressure off your back. You can do a similar thing with like a footstool or a puffy at home and to gather up, but just by leaning over it. So if you do suffer with really like an achy back, try that. It's a really good one. Likewise, arching back, it's something which we need to do, and the ball's really good for doing that. You can actually stretch back nicely over there. I just went crack, crack, crack all down my sternum, which feels quite nice. So actually stretching back like that as well. Because the ball is supportive, you're not putting lots of pressure on your joints and nerves. I don't give that as a stretch because it just feels really uncomfortable. Likewise, bending down, that really loads up the spine and puts lots of pressure on it. So you can see how effective, and these balls are only about 20 quid. So if you do suffer with back problems and you're thinking, actually, this would be a really good solution, what I'd suggest you do is actually make an appointment and go and see a physio and say, can you go over some exercises with me? Most of these exercises are safe. They're really good for people with acute back pain because it can reduce muscle spasm, and anyone who's got long-term chronic back pain, just stretching. I have patients who take these, they're businessmen, travel around the world, they deflate these and take them with them and pump them up and use them in the hotel because otherwise than that, their back just really stiffens up. So it can be really, really effective and a really cheap option as well. And we also do run back pain prevention workshops where we have 10 people in a room with all these videos, the exercise, and they get some exercise to take home with them. So it's a really good way. And it can be incorporated with manual handling training as well. So that's me more or less done. There's one more slide here, basically just to give you a little bit. It's not a big salesy pitch by any means, but it's just to let you know that if you are, if you do have musculoskeletal issues within your businesses, then we are here to help you. We had a very productive conversation with Tom and Lauren yesterday about forming a working partnership between ourselves and the BCC. So we will be partnering with the BCC to give you a really good offer in terms of physiotherapy and help you with support. So we're going to be finalising the details of that, but the kind of things that we offer on-site physiotherapy clinics, and for companies which are over sort of 200 employees, 150 to 200, we can put a physiotherapist on site and help, and so we can see people for half a day. We have about between 8 and 10 appointments. Typically, our return on investment, we return companies £20 for each pound invested in our services through keeping people at work and keeping them fit and healthy and more productive. We also have telephonic clinical support where this is a pay-as-you-go kind of service. There's no ongoing commitment, but if you have someone with a musculoskeletal disorder that isn't getting the right treatment and is causing, having problems at work, we've got a telephone line where we go through a full assessment and provide exercise and advice and video exercise and things as well, so we can help people remotely as well. We also have a national network of clinics in which we can refer people into as well. We also provide health and well-being days, similar to the kind of talk I've done today about keeping fit and healthy on all musculoskeletal disorders, from shoulders, necks and knees, etc. And also the back pain workshops as well, which we can incorporate into health days as well. So Tom, Lauren and I will be looking about what that looks like, but it's really exciting for us, and also Tom can see the real benefits as well. So, more information to come on that. So I think that's me done now. So thank you so much for your time. Does anyone have any burning questions? I will be around for a part of the lunch hour. So if anyone has any questions, I'm the one in the purple shirt. Feel free to come and chat with me. But I hope you've enjoyed today, and thank you again for the opportunity to come down, Tom. Thanks.